insane. Anyway, howdy and aloha, everybody. This is James with Montauk. I have the fantastic RB Ham from the Forum for Foreign Politics.
Forum for Canadian Sovereignty.
Forum for Canadian Sovereignty. There's a lot of information in here. I blame it on the late 80s and the early 90s, you know. But anyway, so we've been talking on Facebook, he and I, for a while now, kind of back and forth on what's going on globally. And what a lot of people aren't getting is there are agendas. And these agendas that the corporate elite 1%, or the CE1s, I call them, along with the corporate party of the United States and other corporate entities of governments across the world, are planning something that's caught my eye for sure. And RB Ham has some information that I think is important for all of us. And by the way, hey, welcome to the show, RB.
Oh, thank you, James. RB is fine. Yep.
Okay. All right. Cool, RB. So, I mean, what is your take on all this? I mean, how is it? What the hell? It's just insane.
Well, it's a revolution installed from the top down. The 1% that gather in Davos, Switzerland, and in the Bilderberg meetings, and associated with the United Nations closely, and they've come right out now and told us that they want to take us towards a fourth industrial revolution, and they have an agenda for it. They call it Agenda 21, and it's broken up into subparts. There's Agenda 2030, of course, which is what they want to have installed by 2030, and that's basically the baby steps towards installing a global fascist superstate that the rich elite and their medical technocrats and their counterparts throughout all the world, because this isn't just an American or an English or a Russian thing. They're all connected, and a lot of these conflicts that they set up for us to follow down rabbit holes, like East versus West, left versus right, are all constructs. And that's how they distract us and divide us, so we don't see what's actually going on. Right. And they quite openly talk about it. All you have to do is Google the Fourth Industrial Revolution or COVID-19, the Great Reset, and they come right out and tell you what they're planning.
Right. So it was great on James Corbett, his last show. He says, well, the old branding was the New World Order, but that just isn't playing well. So they're starting the new branding of the Great Reset. And
right.
When you go to the World Economic Forum website,
yeah,
I mean, they tell you what they're doing. And I went through that website. I'm like, all this is fucking happening right now. Now here's the thing that people kind of need to understand. They're disguising it behind helping you, or
yes,
saving you, or providing more for you. They also use things like climate change and a lot of things. Look, I want everybody like me. I care about the planet and all of its inhabitants as well as you do too, and you want your kids or grandkids or whatever, like I have grandkids, is I want them to live and play in the lakes and the rivers and the oceans that I did. I want that. And I want that for them. I want them to breathe clean air like that. But these people are using that as a way to suck you into their agenda. How prevalent is it in Canada? Here's the difference between Canada and America. We're consumers. We're like the greatest consumers on the planet. I can sell dirt to anybody in the United States if I package it right, market it correctly, right? I do know this about Canada. You guys, and I used to live out there. You don't take shit. You're more. I believe you guys are a little more analytical, a little more critical thinking, in my professional opinion, and it's good, and it's good stuff. So, how is Canada? What do you think?
Well,
difference.
The way they're selling the sustainable development agenda is the same way that they do it down there, or probably in Europe, is they package it in unicorn. I call it unicorn poop. It's crap, but it's bedazzled up to make it look nice. Because Albert Camus once said, the welfare of humanity is always the alibi of tyrants. That's how they do it every time. We're here to help you. Ronald Reagan, although his trickle down economics that happened during his time kind of started to along with Margaret Thatcher and Brian Mulroney up here in Canada, all got together. Mm-hmm. And they're the ones that came up with the free trade idea. They're the ones that came up with the trickle down economic theory of just less taxes and give more latitude to the corporations, and everything will trickle down to the average guy. But they had an assault on the unions, which were the working class and just had clawed their way through to getting for 30, 40, 50 years. And that was an assault. But like you said, when they package it that way, it goes down nicer, and you don't really look behind it because and they start young. They started teaching about the climate change and everything to the children 20 years ago in the schools, slowly but surely, and they've been wrapping it up. And they get so the next generation that comes up has this on their mind that, oh my God, the world's going to end. There's going to be no more polar bears. Florida's going to be underwater. Venice is sinking. All these prognostications of doom and gloom have been happening since the 70s. And everything they've said is going to happen has not turned out. I mean, I think in the 70s, they were actually saying it was going to be a new ice age. And they had to change that because obviously that wasn't happening. And Al Gore in 2000 or whatever, 2001, when he had his, the Inconvenient Truth series, he made some prognostications that were wildly that now that we can check back and look and say what they were saying then, all the stuff, the doom and gloom isn't happening. I believe climate change is real, but climate change has always been real because the climate's always changing. Right. There's always been mini ice ages and dips. It's part of the nature. But as far as man-made climate change goes, I don't think we have that kind of power. But what we do have the power to is stop polluting our rivers and lakes. Yeah. More, recycle more. All that stuff is great. We're all for that. And if you could get people on board with that without scaring the hell out of them. You don't have to tell them that Micronesia is going to be underwater in 10 years. Yeah. Because people have to realize there's a lot of big money behind this. Al Gore is a billionaire, and he's become more rich through this, right? So all these people that get together to push the climate change are also people that are making money off of it through carbon tax ideas and stuff like that. So always look behind the curtain, like the Wizard of Oz. Look behind. You always need Toto along. Toto does, Toto may be small and insignificant, but he played a major part in that film by pulling back the curtain.
Yeah, he was the one. That's a great. I just caught that. Wow, Toto is the hero. It shows everything. Yeah. Now, in regards to climate change, in regards to carbon index, and all this other stuff, you've been to Los Angeles, right? Have you been there?
No, I've never been to LA, but I've seen. Yeah,
I've seen the smog. I've seen it's terrible, and there are a lot of things that we need to do, and there's a lot of things that would help this planet that in a sense we're abusing, in my opinion. Of course, yeah. I mean, we've got. I don't know if you have ever heard of Fukushima.
Yes, I have.
Yeah. Well, Fukushima right now is still spilling out about 40,000 barrels of waste, toxic waste, cesium-137 or something like that, every fucking day, and it's just getting worse. That area is just, they got fish with 3 eyes and all kinds of crap, like the Simpsons. But there's a lot of things that we're doing, and I know you agree with this, that we could do better to save us and nature in a whole. I mean, right? Exactly. Now, the fear of climate change is definitely something that I think that we should look into, and we should start to take proper steps to secure something for us in the future. I believe.
Yes.
Yeah. So to make sure that my kids and their kids have a better place to live. Period. That's. But when they start using it as a way to bring us into their agenda, that's when I have a problem, because that's the main goal of what they're trying to do, is they're trying to use things like flus and race and climate change and uh, all these other distractions, in a sense, from what I'm noticing, as ways to sucking us in or putting us in their place. That it seems like from what I'm reading, and I don't know if you've seen this, but this is a Democrat. She's got this book. It's called "Behind the
Oh,
Green Mask of
yes,
Agenda
I've seen her
2020."
talk. She is brilliant, Rosa Core.
Yeah, and she's a Democrat, right?
I know.
And she's like Democrats against Agenda 20. And I just got this book, and I'm just going through this. And I'm like, are you fucking kidding me? Are you fucking kidding me? And then I'm looking some of the stuff up, and it's right there. I'm just
Yep.
freaking out. And what a lot of people aren't getting is, okay, besides all this, besides the racism, besides the carbon, besides the pollution, besides the wages and all this other stuff, there's an actual plan here,
Hmm.
right? And we become so meek, so malleable. Not you or I. I mean, I think I have been, and so obedient to the point to where it's like they're snapping their fingers, and we're like, all right, what do you want me to do? Jump how high, right? And
Yes.
it's really sad, and they use fear, and they're using these triggers. I mean, I'm having arguments. I'm not even doing it anymore. I mean, when I first started, I'm like, I couldn't believe I was doing this, but wearing a mask, not wearing a mask. These people are saying, "Oh, you're an idiot. You're a fool. Grow up, you piece of shit." They're pissed off. I'm like, look, I do wear a mask at the care and the concern and the respect of others because I understand people have their, they're out there doing that. I'm doing that. When I go into a store, I just do it because of that. Um, I don't need to wear. I don't need to, right? I know I don't fucking need. I just know I don't need to. But the
Yeah.
thing
Well,
is these people are arguing over these things. You should put a bubble over you. I mean, I've seen masks and shields and all this fucking crap. And as I showed you I sent you that pic that I kind of took apart James Colbert's segments of his last show. Um, I indicated that he said COVID it has nothing to do with the Great Reset. Well, and I put in there, COVID was the catalyst, right? COVID is the
yes,
enabler, right?
absolutely.
And there's several of them, right? Can you
Hmm.
can you kind of give us maybe are there some that you're aware of or some things that are
Well,
happening out there?
COVID-19, this is part of the plan. They were talking about a new pandemic, Fauci and everybody, Gates, for years, right? They're saying there's going to be one coming. We predicted it's going to happen, so, and Klaus Schwab of the World Economic Forum has come out right out and said that COVID-19 is their opportunity. It's a way to fast track what they want to happen because when you can uh, panic a whole world's population or most of them into going along with the plan because they think it's good for them, then they will. And all you have to like, I guess I'm aware of these things more than other people because I read a lot, right? Even in high school, I read all of Orwell's works and Huxley's works and um, Ray Bradbury. I consumed everything he ever wrote, so I kind of saw what was coming in, and all you have to do is like use critical thinking skills. I also read Edward Bernays' Propaganda when I was in my 20s, so I've never been, so I've understood how everything is manipulated and it's all propaganda, even a democratic society. Edward Bernays said, even actually in a democratic society, it's almost easier because people believe that they are free, right? It's easier to manipulate people who believe they're doing something of their own free will. The problem with the old Russian Soviet state model was nobody paid attention to the news because they knew they were being lied to, right? Pravda, TASS, Izvestia, all these news outlets in Russia were state owned, and the people knew that they were being lied to. So when they would read the newspaper, they always talked about they read between the lines, right? They didn't take anything at face value. The problem with it, where we believe in a democracy that we're free and that CBS, NBC, ABC are up here in Canada, CBC, CTV, and Global are our big three, are telling us the truth because we live in a democracy. And why would they lie to us? And they're supposed to be the fourth estate, right? And we're brought up with that idea, never understanding that it doesn't have to be government control. If the top corporations control the media and they're in bed with the government agenda, they'll be, it's the same thing, right? So that's why independent media is booming right now, because people here are starting to wake up to the fact, oh my God, we fought this Cold War and we lost, right? We've become like,
people think we
we've
won.
bec-
No, no. Yeah.
we've that old the old Pogo editorial cartoon comes to mind after the my what was it called, the My Linh massacre in Vietnam, and they came and they had a big trial about it or whatever, and the one general had said it came, or colonel, I forget if he was a colonel, but he said we had to destroy the village in order to save it. And Pogo came out with an editorial cartoon showing that we've become what we hate, right? Because that's what we always said, we become Nazis, we become fascists in Vietnam. And the war in Vietnam was ended by the middle class. It was ended by moms and dads who were sick of having their kids drafted and sent to a senseless war. That informed the ruling elite very much, because then they got rid of the draft and they became an all-volunteer army. And to get people to join the army after that, they had to destroy the middle class. So their kids had no future unless a lot of them could join the army, because the army offered, a living and a way to get a trade. And that's how they would push it. So you have to realize when you read, if you know what propaganda and how it works, you can spot it, right? And so it's been easy for me. I've been trying to wake people up, but a lot of people just don't have the time to look into this, because like the assault on the middle class has been that people are working 2 or 3 jobs just trying to make ends meet. They're trying to take care of their family. They don't have time to sit back and be esoteric about things like maybe you and I can, right? So everything to them, everything in their life is a coincidence that's happening. It's a random event. They can't see the plan behind it, and they don't have time to look. And when you tell them there is a plan, they've been conditioned to go, oh, you're crazy, because all their favorite news people or media stars always tell them that that's a conspiracy theory. There's no bearing in reality. Don't even look into it. Just dismiss them, right? And so that's how they get away with it, pure propaganda done at a level that Hitler and Stalin would just marvel at these days. Yeah. Incredible.
What I find really alarming and saddening at the same time is I watch Jimmy Dore, I watch Kyle Kalinske.
He's so disappointing now.
Fucking just,
he's so right about he's so right about so many things.
Yeah, it's like I'm trying to wake this guy up. I think he's just being coddled and protected by Steph and Ruby. But the thing is I actually put a super chat, paid $5 for it, and he brought up the mainstream media and they're censoring you and all this other stuff in one of his shows. And I put it, and then he says this, because certain people, he's talking about himself, have clarity and courage. We're able to move past these things and talk about what's really happening. So I put in the super chat, quote unquote, clarity and courage, but you still won't talk about the $1 trillion COVID gorilla in the room.
I watched it when it was happening.
You did?
And I saw Steph's response going, well, we're not going to debate that. What do you mean? You're all about debate.
That? You saw that?
Yeah, I saw it.
I don't think she read it, did she? Or she
read it? She did.
Oh,
she read it, and then
she didn't read it.
No, she did. I saw the point where she read it, and she started talking about, yes, we know that all this stuff, but we're not going to debate it. And before she had said, we're choosing to believe that COVID-1984 is real. The more I'm watching, I think, look, Jimmy Dore is an intelligent guy, so he knows this is part of this. He's got to know it's a scam, right? Yeah. Because he's always talking about whoever gets censored is telling the truth. Well, COVID-19 resistance is being censored through the roof.
Continuously.
So I think he's
scared.
He doesn't want to lose. He doesn't want to lose his base, which is that the world socialist base that is buying into this. And maybe eventually, when it all comes tits up, he'll say, "I'm sorry, I was fooled," and all that stuff, and hope it goes away. That's what I'm thinking right now.
I think people are starting to come around. 33% of the people in the United States, for a poll, think that COVID is somewhat of baloney. They're not sure about it. Over 50% of the people in the United States won't take a fucking vaccine,
Yeah.
right? And more people are jumping on board. And then now, when you have, see, I'm telling you, if you've seen, I had a show on, I think it was May, May, mid May or early May, and I started putting some pieces together, and the title of the show was the COVID stone. So how many COVID stones are are oh wait, how many stones does okay, how many COVID stones does it take to profit or kill one bird? You know, or how many birds are killed, or how many birds profit from one COVID stone? That's what it was, right? So who's profiting? Who's getting killed? Who's getting died off? Because all this thing is doing is it's destroying the 99%, and they're not even privy to it. It's just it's amazing to me. It's like they're just fucking letting it happen. It makes no sense to me. And so I started putting those pieces together. And then I said, well, what they're going to do is they're probably going to use this against Trump, which they are. It's all Trump's fault. Trump's an idiot. Trump, 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 Trump. So that part's worked. They're going to go after this and that, and then the distraction from it. And I don't know if this is reaching, but Black Lives Matters, which was infiltrated by the Clinton Mafia, in my opinion, you know,
Oh, it's
years ago,
obvious.
right?
Yeah.
As a fucking distraction. For some reason, I've been asking all their leaders, all their representatives, how come you guys aren't asking to take money out of politics? I don't hear fucking
Exactly.
they want you to they want to take their guns away. They don't want to they want to take a chokehold away, and they want to defund the police and take a tank away. Look, I get that, right?
Yeah.
But you're not going after the lobbyists. Those
That's right.
people are they're gonna back off for a little bit, and they'll come back in because they're fucking lobbyists, and they'll come back. But I'm putting all these pieces together. I'm going. This is just back in May, and I'm just going. This does not seem right. And then I took a side. Right there, I took a side. RB. I just said we're being fucking hosed. And then I started digging more into it, going further out from the socialism base or whatever, the Democrats in a sense, who were feeding us all this shit, fear, 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 fear. And I started digging more and more. Then I'm just finding out that we're being worked. We are being worked, and I think it's been like this for a long time, from what you're saying. The
Oh,
Orwellian
yes.
shit's been in play for a while.
Absolutely. Well, but like you said, more people are waking up, and especially like, okay, let's just say we'll call it the COVID-19 resistance movement, right? Where it's biggest is in Germany, because they could smell fascism when it's coming, right?
They should know for sure.
They know. So that's
Yes.
where the biggest pushback is. And the biggest selling book right now in Germany is called Corona False Alarm. It's written by Carrie Rice, PhD, and her husband, I forget his name, God bless me, Sandrine Bacardi, I mean, or something like that. It contributed to by more than 1,000 doctors worldwide have all contributed and signed on to this book. And it's the biggest selling book in Germany, and it lays out perfectly what was going on, that this is what it's being used for. Now, what really is interesting, anybody with 2 cents of a brain can figure out this is a scam, because they've told us themselves. Because back in March in England, they downgraded this new novel coronavirus, COVID-19, whatever they want to call it. They downgraded it from a highly infectious disease to one of non-consequence back in March. Yet a week later, they went into lockdowns. At the very same time in the United States, Dr. Fauci, or I like to call him Dr. Fraudchi,
Yes.
I mean, you look behind his work with when the AIDS crisis was going on, how he was profiting from a horrible drug that was killing AIDS patients off. I mean, it's horrific. But he came out in the New England Journal of Medicine and actually wrote that this COVID-19 may end up, he had to use the word may, of course, because you want to qualify, but may end up being no worse than a seasonal flu. So back in March, they knew this was not a non-consequential disease, but they went into lockdowns worldwide anyway. And they used fear propaganda like you haven't seen in the mainstream media. Like, oh, it was unbelievable. The Elmhurst Hospital thing in New York, where they had a doctor named Colleen Smith do a big New York Times story talking about how it was just a war zone in there. Right. And Jason Goodman, I don't know if you're aware of his work. He was filming in New York on the streets at that time. And he went down to the Elmhurst Hospital the very next day after that story came up. The very day that story came out, he went down there to film. There was no war zone. There was no people, no ambulances stacked up or anything. There were ambulances laying around empty, not doing anything, not going anywhere. And that's what. And then he looked into Colleen Smith, this nurse or doctor, who was supposedly the lead story of this piece, and looked into her background. And what she was most famous for was simulation exercises, right? And then a lot of those first original reports of this stuff came out, and you could tell that they weren't using real patients, or they were mannequins in the beds, right? So you put two and two together, and you go, well, and then when they got caught doing it, they said, well, we couldn't use live footage because they wouldn't let the cameras in there, so we're using simulation footage just to show you what it was like in there, right? And then when you look at what was happening in Italy, they showed a whole.
I remember that. I saw that.
Yeah.
Yes. Go ahead.
And then in Italy, they showed a whole bunch of coffins lined up, and there was like 500 coffins, and these were all COVID-19 deaths that had just happened the day before. And then you look into it, it was actually, remember that boat had sunk off the coast of Italy with all those refugees and died?
Yes.
That was the photograph they were using and passing it off. And they do this over and over again. Then when they get caught, they say, oops. Remember the Kentucky gun show that was passed off as Turkey invading Syria?
Yeah, they thought that was some kind of war between... And this Turkey happened.
Yeah, but it was a gun show, and they used footage from a gun show in Kentucky. And CBS did it, and when they got caught, they said, oh, oops, sorry, editorial problem. It's always an oops, sorry. And they never retract anything. But the problem is people see the original headline, the original story, that sinks into their brain. It's a propaganda technique. And even when they're told later, oops, it wasn't actually what you saw, only 10% of the people that have been affected by the original broadside of propaganda will ever get it, will ever understand. Those of us who know we're being lied to all the time and look for the lies, then it doesn't affect us. We know what's going on. That's why we can see what's going on. And so this COVID resistance is big in Germany. It's big in England. And right now it's huge in Canada. In Toronto and Vancouver today, there are massive rallies going on. Thousands and thousands and thousands of people are fighting back because we can read. A lot of us are waking up because we can read. We're looking at the CDC death stats. They keep talking about case rates. Well, cases are nothing more than false positives. Nobody's going to hospital over these, and they're not ICU. And so they're pushing the case demic now because the death numbers are plummeting, right? So that's how they want to keep the fear up. So a lot of us, I've been awake since March about this, but a lot of other people are waking up slowly because they're looking around going, hey, isn't a pandemic death carts and mass graves? I mean, and nobody knows anybody who has it. And if you do, it's a friend of a friend of a friend who has somebody, right? I mean, back in April, Deborah Birx, remember she had that press conference and it was very famous. She came up and said, right now, we're counting all deaths. If you die with COVID, we're counting it as a COVID death, right? Right. So they publicly have come up and said how they're padding the numbers. And these aren't actually people, and half of them aren't even testing. They're just presuming, right, these deaths as COVID-19 because it looked like they had it. And then the test itself, well, the test, I know you've covered it, the PCR test does not test for COVID-19. It's a swab. They put it in a centrifuge. It's a manufacturing method. Kerry B. Mullis, PhD, who died last year, sadly, so he couldn't be here to tell everybody to stop.
Right?
Yeah, and he died last year. But his invention, the PCR test, is being used as diagnosis. He said never use it for a diagnosis. It's a manufacturing technique. You put some RNA in a centrifuge, you spin it at so many cycles, right? And that's how you get your readings. And he said you can get a reading off anything if you spin that cycle up enough. And in Ontario, in fact,
36, it'll be a false positive. Once you
right,
60
and in Ontario, Canada,
you're positive, right?
Yeah, and in Ontario, Canada, the public health director came back out in May and actually said we're running at 45 cycles and that we're getting wrong readings. The MPP, Randy Hillier, who's the only politician in Canada who's got balls to challenge anything, stood up in the Ontario legislature and called them all out, saying, "For crying out loud, you're basing policy on false positive tests." And the death rate is going down. Why are we locking down the economy even more? Because they're having more restrictions in Quebec and Ontario now based on these cases. They're saying, oh, infection rates are going up, but you can't trust the testing. So a lot of us, and we know that, right? A lot of us are waking up and understanding that. That's why there's a huge COVID resistance going. I don't know how they're going to keep this up because more and more people wake up every day, right? I mean, in Canada, it's falling apart.
Many are.
And
It's interesting just to say that I've encountered this several times. It's harder to prove to somebody that they've been fooled than to fool them. That's like a
it's Mark
paraphrasing
Twain
from
quote.
Darwin or something like that, or from somebody. But the thing is when I show them the information and I bring it to them, they come back and show me the chain of command information from the NIH, from the CDC,
Right.
from the World Health Organization, and I'm like, okay, so where did that information actually generate from? And then they won't answer the question. It's like they don't want to know. It's the Stockholm syndrome in this country on many instances, and you can say this about a lot of people and a lot of different topics and issues out there, but this is really bad. This one they sold this so well, and the fear is amazing. I think I sent you some information in regards to Hawaii.
Okay, yes, I remember that.
Hawaii is the strictest state right now, and it's terrible. It's just ridiculous.
So they're killing the tourism industry.
They're destroying the hospitality industry and the tourist industry. People are pissed up. I keep sending information to them saying, "Hey, this is what's going on. The PCR, the RT hyphen PCR test created by Carrie Mullins was not created to test for an isolated virus. That has nothing to do with that." So I keep asking them, well, where are they running the cycles at when you guys are testing? So what you brought up is exactly what's happening. Is they're creating more cases, right?
Mm-hmm.
More case. That's all they say, cases, because positive is different. Positive for positive for a virus means, or a bacteria or a parasite means that you fucking actually have it.
Exactly.
That's what positive means. Now, cases means you could have a false positive, what you're saying, but what they're doing is like what you're saying. They're raising the cases to create more of the fear of the threat. But here's what they're getting out of it: funding, money.
Absolutely.
And it's just crazy. I mean, there are people. There's a guy who does Hawaii Lies on YouTube. There's a couple other people that are doing this that are showing the direct connection to how these politicians are making money. I actually have, it's called Berkshire. I'll post it. I'll leave all this information inside the notes. But it shows what the government, the state is getting per case.
Yes.
In West Virginia, where I live, in West Virginia, they're getting $471,000 per case.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
But in California, it's only 58,000 because there's a lot of fucking people in California, right? New York's low as well. Hawaii's getting a big chunk because they don't have a lot of people there as well. But it's almost like, oh my God. I mean, we could go on and about the COVID crap and what's happening.
Yeah.
When I've been to the hospital, I've seen it. The fucking parking lots are empty.
Yeah,
There's
I know.
nothing there. And people were afraid to go to the hospital because of contracting this, and they've died. I'm just starting to see right now, which I think is a good thing that's starting to happen, is I'm starting to see a few lawyers out there on Facebook or whatever. I don't know whether to trust them or not, but they're saying if you malpractice lawsuits, something related to COVID. I think I saw something on Facebook the other day. I'm like, what? Yeah. Oh, that's going to happen.
It's happening already here in Canada. Rocco Galati, a famous lawyer down out east, is suing Ontario and the Canadian government. There's a human rights attorney in BC that's suing the British Columbia government, and that's what this Vancouver rally is going to be a lot about. Is a lot of these people showing up will be donating to that cause. Shit's starting to happen because people are realizing the lockdowns killed. And I said this back in March, and I was trying to warn everybody. I remember sending an email to my sister going, "This is not. I'm not just being a contradictory asshole here. The lockdowns are going to kill many more than this virus ever will. Tons more because of the missed elective surgeries, the canceled or delayed cancer screenings, and people are going to be losing their businesses, their jobs, their livelihoods. There's going to be more mental health. You lock down healthy people in their homes. You know, it's completely insane. It's counterproductive to anything that's ever been done in human history before. It's a medical experiment that's never ever been tried. This mass quarantining of people. I mean, it's to the point where it's back during the Black Plague in France. Say the king would wall off a town that had a lot of plague, wouldn't let anybody in and out. Everybody would die there. The ones who had the plague and the ones who didn't. The cure has been far worse than the disease. Suicide hotlines are off the charts right now,
they
right?
can't even staff the people to take the calls.
There was that study in the United States where 25% of adolescents.
Epidemic, like mass crazy drugs. I mean,
Yeah.
if you're smoking pot during COVID, you're fine. Trust me.
Yeah.
Right. But the thing
Yeah.
is so when it comes to the PCR test, so what's happening is there are people out there, and the numbers are right there. You're going to, because of the swab, that's whatever cycles it's set at, is going to test positive.
Right.
So they're going to say, hey, you've got COVID.
Right. Even if you have those symptoms.
Yeah, exactly. So what's going to happen is, oh my God, I've got it. And people are saying it's a hoax. I'm saying, no. Okay, we're saying is that you have a flu, a SARS-2 CoV, right?
SARS-CoV-2,
which there's like 7 of them, I think, or something like that, right?
Right.
So what's happening is, and you probably have a flu. Maybe it's bad because your condition, physically, socially, mentally. I mean, for you to be not moving around, not getting sunlight, not getting exercise, and for you to get the flu at this time is not good for anybody.
Plus, that's another thing about the masks thing. Not only is it not effective or efficient at all, everybody knows that. All you have to do is just, if anybody's informed, and no randomly controlled test of mask effectiveness has ever come back saying, oh yeah, we got to wear them. In fact, in the 2015, they did a study and they came back and said cloth masks are actually detrimental unless you're changing them every 2 hours and never touching them with your hands. But they're bacterial petri dishes is what they are. So everybody knows the masks don't work. The masks are two things. They're a sign or a symbol of submission to the state is the number one reason. And the second reason is because it will help produce the second wave, because people wearing masks 8-hour days their immune systems are going to get down. They're breathing their own CO2. Dr. Marguerite Grace-Brisson, an MD, neurologist and neurophysiologist with a PhD in pharmacology with a special interest in neurotoxicology, environmental medicine, neurogeneration, and neuroplasticity. I mean, her credentials are off the chart. They're longer than our arms put together. And she came out and said, not only do masks don't work, but they're detrimental to your health for anybody. He said, she said, especially seniors and children should never be wearing a mask. What do you mean? Don't you want to protect the children and the seniors? No, because the masks actually are detrimental. You get a 4% incremental deprivation loss of oxygen as you wear them, right? So you don't feel it right away, but after 8 hours a day, let's say you do it for a month, 8 hours a day of wearing a mask after a month, the cumulative effects will severely interrupt your ability to, think clearly and breathe oxygen clearly. And she said that in 10 years from now, you're going to have dementia and Alzheimer's going off the charts for older people, and younger people, their development as far as their intellect will be. You'll notice it. You'll be able to understand it. There'll be studies coming out saying children who wear masks, their IQs will be lower, their ability to comprehend and read will be lower. She's coming right out and saying this because she knows, and she says herself, she's saying this is a crime against humanity, what we're doing to them. It's a crime, and she said 10 years from now, when people finally figure it out, it's going to be no good to say, "Oh, I didn't know," because thousands of physicians and doctors and neurologists around the world know this. Like I said, Corona False Alarm, that book in Germany is coming out.
Right.
There are, and the Great Barrington Declaration, although I'm not totally on side with them because they're from Oxford, Harvard, and Stanford, right? And they're still kind of pushing the vaccine idea. They have, and those three, the Great Barrington Declaration people have not come out and said that, have not come right out and said that the PCR test is a scam. They're talking about the PCR test like it can be used for anything. But aside from that, the point is the masks not only are submission or a signal or a symbol of your submission, two, they're detrimental to your health, and they will help produce a second wave because people's immune systems are going to be shot. Mm-hmm. And so when flu and cold season comes around again, like it does, it's going to be a bigger deal this October, November, December, right? And they'll start pushing it as the second wave because the swab that they do, like you said, doesn't test for COVID-19 because it's never been isolated and purified as its own thing. They're just labeling a strain of SARS-CoV-2 as COVID-19 because it sounds scary, and that's how they get people to buy into this case-demic is what it is.
Right. That's by Karina Reese and Susharit
Bakhtari.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've got it up. You can't see it, but I've got it up on the OBS right there.
Yeah, it's a brilliant book, and there's a German lawyer, Rainer Fulmer Heinrich, I think his name is, or Heinrich Fulmer. Anyway, he's coming out and he's doing a worldwide class action lawsuit, trying to get one going against all these governments that are signing on to this because he's saying that no cost-benefit and proper cost-benefit analysis was done by any of these governments when they started these lockdowns. They never said, okay, we're going to do these lockdowns, but this is the cost to the economy, to lives lost. They never actually said that to the public. They sold the public a lie saying this locking down will save lives. You can't say that because it didn't. It might have saved a few people from going to ICU with the sniffles, but it did not save lives because more lives will be lost due to the lockdowns, due to the overreaction than any virus, right? So he's got them dead to rights. The problem is, of course, who are you going to sue? How many? It costs money to do it. And how many?
Good luck with that. One of those deals, right?
And and Bill Gates and all these billionaire big pharma people, they can afford the best lawyers.
Yeah. So when you can create a vaccine that has already, I don't know when this law came out or how this worked out, but they're not liable.
Nope.
The manufacturers, creators of a vaccine are not liable. And who knows what the fuck is going to happen. This is the way I think it's going to pan out as far as this vaccine. They're going to use people, and I think they've already got test people already. By the way, after I'm done with my little spew, I'm going to, there's somebody in the chat that has a question for you. They're going to, Noam Chomsky, manufacturer consent, Noam Chomsky.
Yes.
He just fucking rolled over for Biden. I don't get it. But anyway,
he rolls over for the Democrat every time. It's part of his contract.
Right? He does. When it comes down to it, I'm with you, right?
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't get it. But anyway, so manufacturing consent. So the way they're going to do it here is they've got people test subjects. I think they're probably going to give them a placebo or something that's not really going to work. Maybe saline solution. Who the fuck knows? They're all going to come back and say, "Hey, it works. I'm fine. I'm safe. I'm done. I'm good," or whatever. Or just give them a regular flu shot that I think I got like 2 years ago, right? And they're going to get social media to get all these people to come out and start condoning or praising this vaccine. And then everybody's, hey, I took it. We took it. Everybody took it. We're good, And then what's going to happen is about 4 to 6 months later, after they distribute the real global vaccine, I just got a really ugly, bad gut feeling. And, I've been said that I'm kind of a kahuna with, me being Polynesian, that I kind of foresee things happening. You just got to read just connect the dots. That's all I'm doing. I'm just fucking connecting the dots that this is not going to end well for millions of people. I'm just really sensing that.
You have a point there, but
real quick, let me get to the question. COVID-19. Okay, so how the hell do we we get these masks off the children in schools. LC is very concerned about that.
Well, you gotta go to your parent teacher meetings. You gotta write your school superintendents. You email them. You got to get a parent council together with this information that's readily available that masks are detrimental to your children. Write write long form letters, not just emails, and mail them directly, or show up in a group with signs and saying unmask our children. You have to fight back harder than the sheeple are trying to keep the masks on their children, because the evidence is on the side of the no masks.
Right.
It is. All these pronouncements by Fauci, or up here in Theresa Tam, all these public health officials that are pushing it are pushing it not because it's a medical thing. It's a political thing.
Yeah.
You have to, and that facts over fear is one of the things you got to keep pushing, because it's Dr. Lee Merritt, a PhD. I don't know if you know about her work, but she's an incredible former Navy surgeon, Dr. Lee Merritt, Leemerritt.
Right.
She's come up with these mask studies and says the problem is a lot of people will say, well, I've got this mask study that shows they're bad for you. And somebody else will come back, well, I've got this mask study that shows they're good for you. And she goes, yes, you could probably find a pro-mask for every anti-mask study, she goes. But the problem is the quality of the studies are always on the anti-mask side. They're always the best randomly controlled. They have the most controls in their studies, and they're scientifically superior to the ones that are pro-mask. And that has to be pounded in, because it's like you got to fight for them, because it's not going to happen just by sitting around and grousing about it. I know of a school where 80% of the teachers here in a school here in town realize what I'm saying, and when nobody's looking, they're taking the masks off their kids. They're not wearing the masks themselves, right? They're taking them outside for every hour for 5-10 minute breathing breaks, because they know what's going on. So they're kind of working from the inside subversively. But you need the parents to band together and make it a big deal. You got to really raise a stink. You got to go to the media that you can't. You got to go to right down to your local CBS affiliate, stand outside and tell with this information and start pounding it into them, because otherwise it's going to be too late. Like I said, in 10 years, when all these problems start developing with the children from wearing the masks, it's going to be too late then. But and because people got to bound to wake up, because these bacterial petri dishes that these cloth masks are causing all kinds of problems already. Dizziness and headaches, and their studies, you're going to be able to actually see within a few months that their work is going to suffer, their schoolwork is going to suffer. Right? It's just obvious going to happen. So get on it now, because before it's too late, especially with all the censorship going on right now, because pretty soon you won't be able to find half these studies, right?
Here's what's alarming to me is there's a lot of people that want to go out there, but they're afraid.
Yes, I know.
It's just they're scared shitless. They're afraid, not just. It's like BLM or Black Lives Matter kind of took the stage away from us protesting the tyranny, subjugation, and fascism.
All by design.
Yeah, it's almost by design. It's by design.
It is by design.
So Stevie with Red Economics, beautiful, fantastic person, just an awesome, amazing person. This person who's in the chat, she's my wife. But anyway, she has a comment. Her mom works at a hospital, right? They're making the nurses and employees wear and use their masks, their same masks, for 2 weeks.
That is crazy.
And that's in a fucking hospital.
That's crazy. Because even if you look at the medical literature, you talk to surgeons. Dr. Jim Meehan is one. He's talked about when you're working in a hospital setting, you have to change those things lots, right? To keep your oxygen level, you got to change them, and you got to change them every 2 hours. Is what he's saying, right?
You can't wear that N95 mask for more than like 2 or 3 hours.
That's right.
And then
You
the
sp-
new study just came out. I think it was 75, 85, something like that, a high percentage that people that are actually wearing the mask are more susceptible now to getting COVID.
well,
I don't
they're
know
more
what the fuck
susceptible to
that means,
testing
but
positive for the RNA because it's it doesn't because you're breathing in your own CO2 and you're keeping the bacteria and everything away. Like the good Lord gave us lungs for a purpose to breathe in the good air and exhale the bad air. If you
yeah,
have something trapping the bad air from going out and it's coming back in, it's defeating the purpose. It's like putting it's like going outside and putting a bag over your flowers. That's going to really help.
I
And
know,
like you
right?
said,
Put a put
and
a
what's really
freaking
crazy,
grocery bag on there.
it came out in England, even in the mainstream media. They did a study 8 months later, and they said, "Oh, it looks like vitamin D3 is really good for you." When they first started these lockdowns, so they said stay inside, wear masks, isolate, don't go out, don't work. They closed all the gyms. That's by design, of course, right, to make us sicker.
Right.
It's, I mean, eh, it just boggles the imagination that this BBC journalist 8 months later said, "Oh, this vitamin D3 is good for you after all." And she had the health minister on there, and she said, "How come you guys never said this before?" And he goes, "Well, we really didn't know that because the studies weren't concluded." You mean you didn't do vitamin D3 studies before this happened? Come on. I mean, and they get away with these it's unbelievable. Another Julia Hartley Brewer, who's an awesome talk radio person in England. She's not buying any of this shit. She's one of the most popular talk radio hosts in England. She has these health ministers on, and she grills them. She just tears them apart. She goes, "So how do you, she had this one guy on yesterday, and she was saying, so because he was advocating for locking down more restrictions in London, and she goes, so what data are you basing that on?" And the guy had no clue, right? He had no idea. He was he was a Labor MP, and he had no clue. So she started to read out the numbers, and she said, and after she read the numbers out, and they were incredibly low, death rates incredibly low, and she also brought up that you may call them cases, but we call them positive tests, and 80% of the people are asymptomatic. The ICUs are not being overrun. The hospitals have never been overrun, even since April. And she's going on like this. The guy looked like he was shot between the eyes with an elephant gun, and then you could just see the snap go on in his brain, and he started speaking out the government talking points again. I know, but the infection rates are going up, and we have to do this for the sake of the blah blah blah. Blah. And it's just a script they
Back to the
run.
script, exactly.
It's unbelievable. I mean, and she just sat there looking, going, "We are truly and wellly fucked," because the
Right,
people.
exactly. Oh my gosh, it's and I'm there's a couple of guys, Mel and Charlie. They really believe they're doing whatever they can to help and benefit their island on Kauai, which I used to live on Kauai. It's beautiful,
Oh,
and
where'd you
I
go?
mean, I'm sorry.
I've lost you. Hold on a sec,
Okay,
Steffi.
I'm right here. Do you copy over? Let me see. Let me check. Let me check and
I
make
just
sure
got.
everything's up.
Oh, there we are.
Good. Okay. Yeah. So I think I know Charlie though for some reason, but um, they're ex cops or something like that, and they've got this really cute, fun, awesome show on the island of Kauai, and they're telling everybody to follow the protocols, follow the chain of command, do everything, blah 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 blah, because they want to get their island back. They're just they want to get it back, but at the same time, it's they're they're doing everything that's like I just said, the chain of command. They're following like everybody else out there the instructions that were given directly from the CE1s, the corporate elite 1%. And I keep trying to explain to them that there's a bigger picture here, guys. It's and some people can't see some people can't dive down that deep. They don't have that. It's not that they don't have the ability to do that. It's that they look on the surface, they see a couple of sailboats, a tanker, everything's fine, but there's fucking monsters and submarines and all kinds of crap below the surface. I mean, you and I haven't even hit the Marianas Trench yet. We haven't,
That's
right?
right.
That's right. I
We
mean,
could.
there's so much shit down there. I don't even know if I want to look, but I have to know because I care not just about you, not just about my kids, not just my wife and everybody else and the planet, but I think it's their duty to dig, find out. I asked them, so what cycles are they running those PCR tests? Oh, we can't. We'll find out. You're a fucking cop. I mean, you were. You have a lot of pull. I mean, this guy used. I think it was a mayor at some point or something else. But they're good guys. They're really trying. But they're all following this script, and that's
Yeah.
the biggest word that people need to understand. Is there has been. It's all Hollywood. It's gotten really bad, and it's just it's. And if we don't stand up and do something about this now, what do you foresee this? What's the ugly side of this?
Well,
Because I
the
know
ugly
the
side
better
of it,
side of this is possibly a physical revolution, in my opinion. But what do you
there's
think?
there's two possibilities, and we're right at the precipice. Like I did a speech a couple weeks ago, and I said we stand at the precipice. This is the biggest moment in human history, and there was only about 100 people at this rally that I was at, and I said, "You 100 people here are you're making history. You're making a stand because we are at the precipice of the biggest moment in human history. I think. Are we going to become a global fascist technocratic state living in perpetual serfdom to technocratic overlords will have total control of our lives, tracking, tracing, chipped, followed by either an app on our phones or by a physical chip inserted into you. In Sweden, they're already doing that. And that's one little side note. That's why Sweden was allowed to escape the lockdowns and herd immunity strategy because they've already signed on to Agenda 2030. It's where Greta Thunberg comes from. So they're,
Whoa! I did
yeah,
not even know that. No
yeah,
wonder they're doing so well.
exactly. They were allowed to do their own thing because they're
Yep.
already fully on board. Like you won't hear anything in Sweden about how these PCR tests don't work because they don't want to. They're part of the problem, right? Don't be fooled.
Oh my gosh,
Yeah,
that's a curveball for me.
yeah, yeah. If you want to look at a country that actually said no to the IMF and the World Health Organization, look to Belarus and then wonder why our governments are trying to overthrow that dictator there. He may be a dictator; he's been in charge for 24 years, but he said "fuck you" to the IMF when they came in and said, "If you lock down your society and put all these restrictions on, we will give you a $950 million loan, and you being a dictator, I know you'll pocket half of it." He said no. He had the I mean, he's a dictator, but he had the courage to kick out the IMF. Can you imagine? Wow. But anyway, that was
Tom
a side
Cruise? How
note.
do you fucking fuck with Tom Cruise?
I don't know.
Right?
So anyway, so that's the bad side. A technocratic, fascist, global overlord state where you have no rights from birth to, and you're trained like in the Huxley's Brave New World. They from birth you're trained to what occupation you're going to be, right? They'll pick the elite get to do this top jobs and have the freedoms and be exempt from stuff, and the bottom 99% we're going to be serfs, and half of us on UBI and the other half working from home, programming, playing video games on our TVs for money. That's as
I wish I could
but
do that. I play a few games. My wife plays a few games too, but I'm telling you, I mean, here's the thing about what I believe, and you're right there where I'm at. It's I don't believe that we're gonna wake up in time.
oh well,
I mean, and the reason why I say that is because, and I want us to, and I'm trying. It's and I always say to people out there, I said, look, it's not your fault. And the reason why I say this is because I've been in marketing and sales, and I've been in I used to work at some very very large companies that I'm not going to say. Um, and these companies, their marketing strategies are amazing, right? And they know how to brand. They know how to do their public relations. They know how to use narratives. They know how to use these talking points. They've been controlling and manipulating the masses for so long. They know exactly how to do it, when to do it, how to place their ad here, how to put that person. I mean, you've seen the pictures or the videos of you'll have the same narrative or talking point across the country. It's like, how do
Yep.
they all say that at the same time? You know, the new norm, the new norm, the new norm, but the new norm, the new norm, right? And these things have been set up and played this way for a long time. And people are just, they, it's hard for them to understand that it happens to them.
Yep.
You, on the other hand, since you were in your younger 20s, you picked up some great books, started reading, doing, and you were privy, and you had already shielded yourself with a sword and a shield to protect yourself from these things. But all these people, they don't have any armor, and and
Yeah.
and and, and I tried, and now they have a new armor. Their armor that they have is to believe in the system, to believe in the and they don't say corruption because they don't think it's corruption, but they're believing in the information that they're receiving, which is actually being fed to them in around here through over there, from this corporate elite 1%. That's where
Well,
it's coming
also,
from.
yeah, and also, there's ways they control groups. So when after the George Bush years were so disastrous, the people are so sick of that. Why did they elect Obama? Because he promised hope and change. Did he bring hope and change? No, he brought less hope and less change. Nothing stayed the same. He took 2 wars to 7. He drilled in the Arctic. Blah blah blah. We all
Yep.
know the Jimmy Dore
Mm-hmm.
thing, right? Okay, so Jimmy Dore. So next, now they had bigger plans. So who was going to win the next election, Trump or Clinton? And these technocrats and autocrats, they sat back on their high horses and they said, which one of these candidates can get our agenda more through? And they thought Clinton, no, because the right wingers will never go along with anything she does, right? And they're our biggest challenge right now because we've got the left mostly dumbed down. Obama dumbed down the left. The anti-war movement's destroyed. We've got them. So who do we got to get next? The right wingers. So who do we put in? Trump. And what do we do to get them to just sit back and trust the plan? Q. Brilliant psychological operation. The Q-tards believing all this stuff, trusting the plan. Everything's going to be okay. The white hats, everything. Like there's white hats in government. They're going to save you. Come on. Come on. If Trump was who he said he was, he would never allowed Fauci into the White House in the first place. He would have kicked his ass out. Redfield, he would have changed everything. There's a bullshit. This is just the flu. We all know it. Fuck off. He would have also, if he said, remember how he got elected, lock Clinton up. Well, the very first inaugural luncheon after the selection, because no president gets elected. They're selected. Ever since they killed JFK, they decide who gets in charge and how they get their agenda done is. So anyway, the very first inaugural luncheon, he congratulates Clinton and her husband and says, "Stand up, have a big bow." And there's a big applause. And he said, "I respect you so much, Hillary," and all this. I remember after the election when he had his first rally after the election and they were saying, lock her up. And he goes, no, haha. He laughed at the crowd. I was just saying that to get elected. He told them right there, right to their faces, and they're still doing this. It's one big club. We ain't in it. Anyway, so getting back to this whole roundabout point, there is optimism. I actually believe I have optimism here because I see people waking up all the time. Okay. The huge rallies in Germany, in England, they're absolute an open revolt in England. I can see, and here in Canada, people are waking up by the droves because, like you said before, we are more critical thinking up here in Canada. We're not as lambasted by the media. Those of us who've woken up have woken up others. We're not listening to the CBC anymore. We're actually doing independent media because we've gotten to the point here in Canada, half the population of this country, I am sure, looks at the CBC, the CTV, and global news that we have up here as Pravda, Izvestia, and TASS. And we know that. And we're reading between the lines, or we're totally rejecting it and going to independent media. Independent media is really going off the charts here in Canada. YouTube, that's why they're cracking down so hard on YouTube and cracking down on free speech so much, because they can see it happening. The technocratic overlords see it happening. So they think their solution will be more censorship. Well, it doesn't work that way. Why do you think the Soviet Union bloc fell apart? Because the censorship became, if something is being censored, you know what's true, was that 90% of the people that lived in the Soviet system knew that they were being lied to. And so everything was underground. The more you censor, the more the resistance rises. It's a historical fact. So I see optimism, because the more they have to crack down on you, the more they slander you, the more they demean you, the more they demonize you, the more they try to ignore you. or fight you. All that stuff, like Gandhi said, first they ignore you, then they demonize you, and then they fight, and then they and then they crack down, and that's
Plagiarize, call you a buffoon, a joke. I've heard them
so.
all.
So I have some optimism because I believe in as Robert Burns so famously said, the best laid plans of mice and men often go awry. Nothing ever. They may think they know everything, and they may think they have this beautiful plan, and everything's going to go great. But I can't see it because I don't think human history works that way. There's always a tendency to go towards the light, as Martin Luther King said. History goes towards the light. Justice will be served. Thomas Jefferson once said that he trembles for his country because he knows that that God will not let this happen too much. Because and he was right. I really think that there's some optimism, but it requires you getting off your ass. It does. You can't just trust you can't trust the plan because there is the plan if you trust the plan, the plan is Agenda 2030. That's the plan. So don't trust it. Get off your ass. Go out, protest. Throw a wrench in the gears. Throw your body into the wheels of the machine and fight back. We've done it before. We stopped Vietnam. Yeah.
I think you just curbed my thinking.
Yeah,
My thinking, and it has nothing to do with religious. I'm kind of an agnostic person.
I am
But
too.
yeah. But the thing is, and I say prayers before dinner sometimes. But here's the thing. Here's the thing that I think people really need to understand. Uh, Governments have been overthrown by their people throughout history. Yeah, because of reasons like this. When a small group of people, this is how it always fucking happens. Just look in the history books, the real history books, start to get together and they start making plans and controlling, trying to control everybody. The public becomes privy to it, aware of it, and the masses, I'm saying, and they start fighting back. They start protesting. They start fighting back. And they do what we should be doing now is hitting the streets. You're either with us, Black Lives Matter, or you're not. But we're gonna get money out of politics. We don't want to we fuck your party system. We want to write in our votes. We want this COVID shit to fucking stop. It's fuck the bullshit. We don't want the World Economic Forum dictating everything or the World Health Organization dictating everything because we know who you fucking work for or what this is all about. It's just exposing all this information systematically to come out. The thing is it's because of social media or independent media that is being oppressed and fascistly, restricted and censored. By the way, I bought some of the Isagoria with Ben Schwann.
Yes.
Yeah, I bought a little piece of that,
Smart.
which is good, but there's got to be there has to be feet on the street. I
Yeah.
totally agree.
Yeah, you got to take to the streets. It's got to be a physical representation of the resistance. You can't just do it from behind your computers, right?
Yeah.
Time to wake up and don't be afraid. I mean, this is the biggest moment in human history. Like I said, are you going to be on the right side of history, or are you going to be on the wrong side of history? It's simple. I mean, it's all there is to it.
Yeah, Jimmy Dore, Kyle Kalinske, Humanist Report, Jamal Thomas.
Or how about
everybody
or
got it.
or Aaron Mate or Max Blumenthal,
Yeah,
Katie Halper.
all you guys. I mean, yeah. What do you guys want to do? Aaron Mate, Glenn Greenwald. Are you guys gonna fucking expose this shit?
I mean,
it's
why
all
isn't
right there for him? What gets me about these guys? See, Glenn Greenwald has nobody to fucking answer to, in my opinion. Max Blumenthal as well. The only person that I'm seeing that's doing anything are like Last American Vagabond,
Eva Bartlett,
yeah, doing
Vanessa Beeley,
Whitney Webb. Right?
Whitney Webb's awesome.
Yeah, she's doing good. My wife's like, "Who the fuck is this Whitney Webb person?" she's just really diligent. She lives in Chile, correct?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
And she's freer to do a lot of things. A lot of people in the United States are a little worried. They're a little concerned. They don't want to be deplatformed. They don't want to lose that money. They don't want to stop selling their shirts, their
Yeah.
T-shirts, and their coffee cups. It's like,
Yeah.
you're gonna have to fucking risk that, bro.
Yes.
We're
It's time
at
to
that
risk it.
point, Jimmy, Door, Stephanie Zamorano. I think Graham is getting closer. Graham Elwood's getting
Well,
closer.
Graham is like right on the fence. I could just a little
He's
push.
so
He just
close.
needs a little push because he has Whitney on his show all the
Yeah,
time.
I
But have
know.
you,
It's
but
tripping
have,
me out.
but you ever notice when he has Whitney on there, they never talk about COVID. Not ever. But
He doesn't
Whitney,
want to
no,
get deplatformed.
exactly. Well, he's worried because Jimmy might come over and smack him. That's what's
I
worried. He's
know. What
worried
are you
about.
doing talking about? No, I think it was Stephanie would do that. Don't you
Well,
ever
yeah,
talk
it's
about that again.
possible. Well, although I remember watching one show and Stephanie was almost going to get there about 9/11 and the project for a new American century came up, and how a year before 9/11 happened, they had actually written down that they needed a new 9/11 to get their new American century going so they could invade the Middle East and get the American people behind them as we need a new Pearl Harbor, right?
Uh-huh.
And so she was actually about to start talking like that. And Jimmy looked over and said, Stephanie, can't stop. You can't talk about that. Can't talk about that stuff. Like, because he, like, that's Alex Jones stuff, right?
Yeah,
So
no,
the thing with Alex Jones was 90% truth, 10% bullshit, and leading the people who knew that there was the official narrative of 9/11 had so many holes in it that you just couldn't prop it up. People like that will go follow who the Pied Piper is. Alex Jones was the Pied Piper, and he led them off to, I mean, it's a psychological operation writ large, Alex Jones, that whole off. Anyway, I fell for it at the time because I was desperate to see, but anyway, we live and learn. But I've got to go right away.
Yeah, I was
Can I
just gonna
plug?
say I was trying to close it up, but there's so much to fucking talk about.
Oh
Listen,
God, we
why
could
we
go
got? Let me
on and
tell you,
on.
next time we have open mic, I'm gonna send you an invite all the time. I send it to a few people out there to come on my show when we have open mics. But listen, it was awesome meeting you. Hopefully one day we can look back at this and say, "Fuck, we did it,"
Yeah, yeah,
because
yeah.
I'm really gonna do whatever I can to stop this. Yeah, stop this nuttiness. But anyway, thank you so much for being on the show.
Okay, I want to plug one thing.
What website should we go to real quick?
Well, it's not a website, but Forum for Canadian Sovereignty is who I represent, and we have a Facebook page. Also, you should follow the Line International. You should follow. Just Google Vancouver Freedom Rally. It's going on right now. They're going to have speakers like you wouldn't believe. Dr. Rashid Buttar, Dr. Judy Mikovits, David and Gareth Ike, Del Bigtree, David Wolf, Dr. Robert Scott Bell, Mickey Willis, Mark Friesen, Tanya Gaw, and Ted Coots, who's with Vaccine Choice Canada, are all going to be talking today and tomorrow in Vancouver. Toronto's having a big rally. Tomorrow on Sunday, all of Saskatchewan, all us truthers and freedom fighters in Saskatchewan are going to Humboldt, Saskatchewan, which is exactly halfway between Regina and Saskatoon. We're having a big, huge rally there. Right. So anybody in Saskatchewan who's listening to this, come on down to Humboldt tomorrow at 1 o'clock at Civic Park. We're going to have a huge rally. There's going to be some speeches and some truth dropped. And you got to keep the rallies going. Another thing to do is don't just look inside your own bubbles, right? So what I do is I go read what they're doing in other countries. So in England and in Germany and in France and Spain, and find out the independent media there, right? There's a lot of independent media that is not on board with the agenda, and look out for what's going on in other countries, because it will give you hope. If you knew what was happening on England, in talk radio in England, it would swell your heart and go, at least there's some sense going on.
Yeah,
because they're in full open revolt in England. Good. It's beautiful to see. Good. So I think if you start, sharing some of that media with your groups here in the New World, in Canada and the United States, and get people realizing, hey, there is hope. That's what we've got to look for. Is that there's light coming. All you have to do is grab it. The opportunity is here. We're on the precipice. We can turn it the right way if we all get together and say no more. We aren't going to be lied to anymore. Edward Bernays, you were wrong. We are not just sheep. Sigmund Freud, fuck you. We are not just slaves to our egos and our ids. we are fully developed human beings with consciousness and spirituality, and we got to let that flow. Stop being pigeonholed, because and stop with the fear. FDR was a great president because he knew that the only thing to fear was fear itself. That's why he was a great president.
Yeah.
And we need I mean, I don't know where our next FDR is coming from. I don't see him anywhere on the horizon.
Anytime soon.
But it's
I
a
almost
possibility.
Tulsi Gabbard. It came back as a woman, but that was a fuck up.
Yeah, well, I think she knows, she knows what happens to those who buck the trend too much. You end up in a pine box. So,
Yeah, exactly. But anyway,
but
hey, thank you very
love
much.
you.
Have a great day. I'm gonna send you some links in the future. Send me stuff. I already
Oh, yes.
I already showed everybody the line and a few other things. But we'll be in touch, bro. Thank you very much.
You bet.
Bobby. Good talking with you.
Thank you very much. Peace out.
Peace out.